Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Wednesday everybody. First up, we need to go through 2 meetings of the political elite, which, while are a little dry, are also very important for us to cover. Firstly, yesterday, Tuesday, saw the first meeting of the National Security Commission under the 20th Party Central Committee. At the meeting, Xi Jinping stressed, quote, the need to accelerate the modernization of the national security system and capabilities and ensure the new development pattern with a new security pattern. End quote. The General Secretary described China's national security situation as complex and grave. Interestingly, the Chinese version of the meeting readout includes content that doesn't appear in the English version, suggesting that when it comes to national security, there are separate signals that Beijing wishes to send to its domestic audience versus its international audience. For example, we see these lines only in the Chinese readout. Quote, the complexity and difficulty of the national security issues we currently face are significantly increased. End quote. And quote, we must adhere to bottom-line thinking, take into consideration the worst-case scenarios, and prepare to endure severe tests, even in high winds and on rough seas. End quote. Li Wei, an expert on national security at the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations, speaking to state media about the meeting, expressed yesterday, quote, the meeting has made a very important point in safeguarding China's new pattern of development with a new security architecture as the country faces prominent challenges, end quote, adding that this would be achieved by, quote, shaping a favorable external security environment, end quote. State-run Global Times writes, national security risks involves fields such as financial security, energy security, and military security, both traditional and non-traditional. As one US-based analyst bluntly put it today, quote, in China, everything is national security now, end quote. The second meeting we need to quickly cover was a Politburo study session on education, which met on Monday. During the meeting, Xi stressed that education is a, quote, strategic precursor to building a modern China and achieving greater science and technology self-reliance, end quote, adding that correct ideology and correct political direction in education are critical to achieving this. Quote, we must focus on strengthening the education of socialist core values, guide students to establish firm ideals and beliefs, always listen to the party and follow the party, and devote themselves to the country and the people, end quote. Someone who evidently is keenly studying that very correct ideology and correct political direction is US billionaire Elon Musk, who is visiting China this week. In a statement released Tuesday evening, Musk was quoted by Chinese officials as having told Foreign Minister Qin Gang the following, quote, the Chinese people are hard-working and wise, and China's development achievements are well-deserved. US and Chinese interests are intertwined and inseparable as conjoined twins. Tesla is opposed to decoupling and breaking the chain, and is willing to continue to expand its business in China and share the opportunities of China's development, end quote. Now, this does not sound very much like how Mr. Musk typically speaks. It is likely a repackaging of the general ideas the Tesla chief communicated in the meeting. Elon Musk is in China to meet with leadership and see the Shanghai-based Tesla factory, his first opportunity since the start of the pandemic. China is critical to Musk's EV ambitions, providing a base for manufacturing EVs, as well as a massive market to sell them. Tesla is nearing the start of trial production for its new revamped Model 3 in Shanghai, which the company hopes will make it more competitive in the cutthroat China market, which is currently engaged in an intense price war. Beijing is also using the visit as an opportunity to signal to global capitalists that China is once again open for business. Musk's comments are similar to those we've heard from other US and European business leaders, from Apple to Mercedes, in recent weeks, but run counter to US and German political efforts to decouple, or de-risk, as some are now calling it, from PRC supply chains. with electric car batteries and semiconductors being sectors of particular political concern. The US and Germany have even offered state support for local manufacturing to help wean the auto industry off its heavy reliance on China and EV components. Musk's comments suggest, however, that Tesla does not intend to take that road. Shares of Tesla rose on Tuesday, suggesting that investors are not displeased with his comments. How officials and politicians in Washington feel about them, however, is another story. Next up, China and the Europeans. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode of China Update, as always, don't forget to hit that like button. It's a great way to support the channel and helps the channel be shown to new people. Subscribing and sharing is a great way to help the channel too. And for anyone who can go the extra mile, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. This channel is a one-man show, and this support is the best way to help me continue doing it over the long run. As always, thank you so much everybody for the ongoing support. US-based outlet Bloomberg reports that in a negotiation that highlighted lingering hesitations over Washington's more confrontational approach to China, EU nations agreed on a watered-down text of joint conclusions from a meeting of EU-US Trade and Technology Council. From a meeting of the EU-US Trade and Technology Council in northern Sweden that started yesterday, Tuesday. That is, according to sources speaking to the outlet. The unnamed sources say that, quote, several references to China were removed after a number of EU countries objected to earlier drafts. The newer version, obtained by Bloomberg, also softens earlier language where the two sides planned to agree on aligning their approaches for screening outbound investments. End quote. US outlet Politico makes similar reports. Some European officials told reporters for the outlet that, quote, even the keyword China doesn't appear in the final communique as much as the US would like, end quote. This once again reminds us that while European views towards China have indeed been hardening, several countries are still not willing to adopt the more hawkish US line, and this is causing friction in transatlantic relations. The China policy debate within China continues. Comments from Swedish Prime Minister this week best put the finger on mainstream European views at present. Quote, I think the US has been a few years ahead of Europe, but I think very many countries now realize this is not the time for naivete. It's not the time to stop communicating, cooperating with China either. Decoupling is not the answer, but to have a serious common approach to this matter, I think would be. End quote. While Europeans are still uncertain what their China policy should be vis-a-vis technology and economic security, including investment, there is one front in which the bloc is in agreement and close to the US position. That is, on the Ukraine war. For a few weeks now, Beijing's special envoy on Eurasian affairs, Li Hui, has been meeting with EU officials to push China's position on the conflict, a position which we have thoroughly explored in previous videos. However, it appears so far the Europeans are not buying it. US financial media outlet The Wall Street Journal, in a report yesterday, quoted a senior Western European diplomat as expressing, quote, we explained that freezing the conflict is not in the interest of the international community unless there is withdrawal of Russian troops. We told Ambassador Li that it's impossible to split Europe from America on this point, and that Europe will not withdraw support from Ukraine. End quote. And this exchange between China-EU ambassador Fu Cong in an interview with the UK-based New Statesman perfectly captures how Beijing's geopolitical tightrope act on the Ukraine war continues to result in a very awkward diplomacy in Europe. New Statesman. Help me understand why China has not condemned the Russian invasion and called for a withdrawal. I'm puzzled because the basic core of China's thinking and values on foreign affairs and the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. They're in the preface of the Chinese constitution. They are mutual respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, mutual non-aggression, non-interference in each other's internal affairs, equality, mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. Russia violated all of them on February 24th, 2022. If Russia violates the most sacred principles affirmed by China about international affairs, why hasn't China condemned Russia? Fu Cong. Well, we have said that we support every country's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. I think that is sufficient, and everyone takes that message, including Russia. New Statesman. But it's not condemning Russia. Fu Cong. So we have our own diplomatic style, and I think at this stage actually a simple condemnation does not solve the problem. It may reduce your space for diplomacy. If all countries take the side of one country, then who is going to come out as a mediator for peace, right? But it does not mean that we are condoning any action specifically in this conflict. New Statesman. But you agree that Russia started the war, not Ukraine? Fulton. That's for historians to decide. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will see you all tomorrow.